Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, the 26th of July, 2021. Wherever you are this morning, hope you are up and you are raring to face the new day. It's a new week, a brand new day. Trust everyone had a really good weekend, ready for the work week and whatever you're going to undertake. Here we are again, Fresh Perspectives, and it's a pleasure to be with you. We'd like to thank MTV for bringing us on air and online, as well as all the other platforms who are bringing this program live. We say good morning to those of you looking on Mikey Live, Partygrenada, TNR Communications, our own Perspectives Cage, and a special good morning to those of you on Sister Isle in Carriacou, Pity, Martinique. I am Brenda Batiste, and it's a pleasure to be here once more, and it's time to say good morning to our expert talk panel of Senator Christopher Diali and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Brenda. I trust
What's up, morning?
Morning. Yes.
Wake up.
I had a restful weekend.
Oh, nice.
Between checking on my corn and of course Olympics and trying to see what's going on with there and all the positives and the negatives. You know, it's any sporting event of that nature. And of course being saddened by the knifings and the choppings that have been going on in Grenada in recent weeks.
Yes.
I think we had another death yesterday in Victoria.
St. Mark.
St.
Friday
Mark's.
night.
Yeah. So, you know, that is a concerning thing for all of us.
Yes.
But it's one of those things. And of course, being still, disappointed that our vaccination rate is as low as it is, and it's only going slowly but slowly. And one of the things that continues to bother me as well. So, aside of that, it was a restful weekend.
Morning all colleagues, people, morning. Chris, I agree with all the things you said. I think, the COVID thing still bothers me. But during the week, I was following the news and there was some bus operators and others complaining about the high cost of fuel and people generally. And a couple of weeks ago, I warned. I said, look, based on what's happening internationally, because Grenada does not determine price of fuel. If you recall, as you go back last year, the cost of oil was -0, meaning that refined or producers they would pay you to take the oil for them. But what's happening now? A couple of things that is driving the cost of oil. That Grenada has nothing to do with it. One is that OPEC is now better organized. In terms of the collaborating now, it's not that Saudi Arabia is not producing and others producing. They are now doing this together as a unit. Secondly, industries are now reopening and coming back on stream. Now it's summertime. There's more travel in the United States and elsewhere. So these factors and others are part of the reason why we're seeing an escalation here. The taxes that is applied, local taxes that's applied to fuel here, it's been there for a very long time. That's not determining the ultimate price of oil, but what's happening in the industry overall, and is the formula being used. So we need to keep that in mind. Question is, how do we react to that? How do we respond to that? How do we mitigate against that? Well, that's another conversation. What do we do as individuals to reduce our consumption and so forth? These are factors we can certainly take into consideration.
I think the overarching concern, though, seems to be that people are really at the point now where they are feeling it on their pockets. And, you just gave the explanation with the oil producing and exporting countries, OPEC and all of that. But the man at the bus terminal does not understand that part. What he understands is that every mid-month, there he's seeing these prices going up. And so that rests with the authorities, the government. And so the question is, from our end, what, if anything, can be done to assist with softening the blows of that? Because I think really that's where the angst is coming from.
To add to that, I mean, let me just say generally, a lot of the inflation increases we're seeing is across the board. And it's all imported because freight have gone up in some instances and the logistics with getting stuff here 200-300%. And we've seen it in my industry, we've seen it in other industries. The retail and distribution trade is seeing it significantly. They will tell you what the price of milk and cheese and thing was 6 weeks ago.
Well, it's been passed on in the supermarket.
Yeah. So there is a significant imported side to that, and how we would manage that is one thing. But on the OPEC and the oil side and the fuel price, I think what is happening too is that Grenada has been compared to other islands like St. Vincent and St. Lucia, and the price per gallon. And these islands are lower than us. When we at almost $15, they are 13, somewhat. So there is a conversation in the background about what is government taxes on this. And government taxes, I know, is at a fixed rate, but it's always at a high. It's at a high rate right now. It's high.
Yeah.
So people are asking, can government reduce some of this in order to soften the blow for the average commuter? Because obviously the busmen, are going to go to government. I know the Grandlands Association, I think, met last week and preparing themselves to go to government to have a discussion on where we go with bus fares. And the unfortunate thing with these things is when we increase bus fares, it doesn't tend to go back down.
Yeah. I remember. Let's remember too. For all we say, about the bus operators and so on. Remember, twice in the last probably 5 years, they were asked to just hold it as it relates to bus fares, and they did. They did. There were times they got concessionary things on vehicle parts, whatever have you. But it comes a point where so I have moved twice. What are you doing? That sort of thing, because now. So I trust.
So something to be approached, and I mean it's on. The discussion is on. There must be some relief somewhere. The other thing, though, is, Chris, and you touched on it, is the whole question of the vaccine and what our other countries are doing. What I gathered, I understand that Antigua, the conversation there's some clear mandate for frontline workers where vaccination is mandatory, or you pay for your PCR every 2 weeks to verify, to provide evidence that you're that you're okay. But I'm hearing the same echoing in St. Vincent with Gonzalez saying, look, there are going to be consequences for our workers in certain industries, in certain sectors who don't take the vaccine. And I'm sure the prime ministers are speaking. So you think that Grenada is contemplating such action?
Well, I said before, and I mean, I've been controversial on this, and I've said that, government is ducking their responsibilities as far as I'm concerned in mandating certain aspects of the public service to be vaccinated. So, for example, I've said prisons, the police and security forces and frontline nurses and doctors. To me, you have no choice if you're working in the public service that you have to be vaccinated. And I think government needs to lead in saying it is mandatory in those areas. I mean, when the rates are low,
of the public service is vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're docking it to the point that they're allowing the private sector to take the lead. So be it. And some of us in the private sector are taking the lead. Some of us have said that it has to be mandated in the hospitality sector, and this is what it's going to be. If you want to be in the hospitality sector, this is where it's at. Some of us have said in other institutions in the private sector, if you don't want to take it, then take a PCR test every 2 weeks at your cost.
At your cost.
Right, in order to continue working and so on. So you could see that there is a move where we're getting to the point in the private sector to say, listen, this choice has to be made one way or the other.
Right.
And there will be consequences for both sides, the company and the employee. You decide where you want to be on that part of the fence. So I just think that when you see all the moves happening by the various prime ministers and what they're doing in order to protect what they have, I mean, Brenda, what is the reality? We have opened back up.
It's a dance for them
we have
too, because
600 plus people in quarantine.
Yeah, there are political consequences.
We have 3 positive cases, I think.
Yeah.
We have identified in isolation.
600 people in quarantine. As of Saturday night, we had 1,040 people in quarantine.
And that is guests coming into the country, because we have opened back up. We have tourists coming in. We have the taxi men, the airport workers back in work. So you have these people who are happy that is happening. But
and that's good.
That's a risk for the country.
Talking about happy and risk, right? Yesterday, I'm looking at this UK site, and there's this travel writer wrote about Carriacou, Pity Martinique. Normally they always highlight Grenada. So that was a really good one. I shared it, I think, on my page. As I went on, there's this big headline: Grenada as travel reopens for Europeans and so on, Grenada travel hotspot of the Caribbean. So immediately you feel a little good, then the little butterflies start in my stomach again, because the trigger word there for me was hot spot. But you know, and I love, because really and truly that's how dicey it is. You get excited because yes, they are coming, but as they are coming, we would continue to have positive cases. I heard a minister last week saying that there's a possibility that someone has been identified with a variant and all of that. And so to me, it's just common sense. Well, I shouldn't say it's just common sense. I think it behooves all of us as the pandemic rages on, and even if we think we are isolated from the rest of the world and we're so clean, we're not. And that as positive cases continue to show up, even if they are in quarantine, we need to be so concerned.
Well, I mean,
because we do not know what's out there. All of us have not been tested en masse for COVID.
Look at
we do not know what's out there.
Look at what happened in Cowpen yesterday.
Can't believe this.
When you see the crowds in Cowpen and nobody wearing masks and nobody social distancing, yes, we seem to be free of COVID so far. We're testing, but with the risk of that's now being posed to the country and the general populace as we give livelihood some sort of priority over, and especially in the tourism sector that has been hit so hard. We have to, as a nation, as a people, I mean, to me, this is a decision of, do I have protection or don't I have? The world is fast becoming a world of vaccinated and unvaccinated. The unvaccinated seem to be dying and getting seriously ill versus the vaccinated. So, I mean, to me, the choice is a simple one.
Choice.
Yeah. You want to take the risk of not, regardless of what is science and this and all the talk out there, for you as an individual, do I have protection or don't? And if I take the decision I don't want to have, then you have to live with the consequences and the risk of getting. The only problem with that is that the pressure you're going to put on the medical public health system could be so severe that the normal situation, people who normally will have to go to the hospital for treatment, won't get it. So by your choice, indirectly, you'll be killing people or suffering people on the other side.
Well, I'll tell you something. People are not thinking so far down the road. And you have just made some very rational and practical and logical thinking. People are in an emotional space. They have been locked down, locked up, out of work, need a fit, need a jam, need to play jab for the last 2 years. And that is what's being reflected in how people are responding to a lot of things. How do you mitigate that? It's really a dicey time for us. A couple of weeks ago, I made the point on this program. A friend of mine called me afterwards and told me they disagreed, but they disagreed with what I was saying on the point that they need a lime, but they think I was making a valid point in that some of the permission that has been given for activity should be rescinded in light of some can happen and some cannot happen. And we are into that phase. People who now want to pay the jab, because remember, no jab activities, they say no jab activities getting permission, we don't have carnival. But people are making these equivalencies. Okay, so them in tongue jumping up, the cow pen full, why I can't play jab in Willis? You know, so we have to take a look at, you see these next couple weekends, we have to take a look. What is going to cost somebody you gave permission to put on an event? Call them in, have a conversation. We are entering the danger zone. That's all I'm going to say.
I worry.
Well, you know, I want to say it. I know people ain't going to like what I say. I think probably the only thing to get us to line up to get vaccines in a serious rate is that if we have some kind of event where people die here and so on because of COVID. That may not be the nice thing to say and say it, but I mean, that is where we're heading.
Because, here's a nice thing to say.
It's unfortunate.
Here's a nice thing to say, in my mind, that we have not, Grenada have not had the experience the rest of the world has had. So we can't relate.
That's the point.
I have never bungee jumped. So all I know when I look at people bungee jump, I feel a twingle in my stomach, but I have never bungee jumped. So I don't know. So we seem to be there, right? The fact that we can't relate because it has not happened here.
That's right.
And then we figure, well, you know, we're virtually free because this is Grenada and it's a beautiful place and Nothing bad
well, we
really
not to go
happens
far.
here,
90 miles south
right?
of us is Trinidad.
And then
over
let's not get away from this fact. We are also hooked on this thing. We are not full anti-authority, whether it's the government, whether it's the police, whether it's your parents, whether it's your workplace, whether it's your church, whatever they say, you are woke enough. You're so woke that you're walking into your death, but you're going to oppose it, right? Because you are that woke. It's your freedom of speech. It's your choice. It's your opinion. I went back and read things from 1918, 1920. People were carrying on the same way. Human beings were getting on in the Spanish flu the same way. And this is the last wave of it, when they were heightened in their wokeness and their protests and so on, the most people perished when it swung around like a hurricane. We're not wishing that this happens here in Grenada, but we just want people to pause. Everybody. It has to happen. It just has to happen.
They know what the old people will say, if you can't hear, you go feel. I hope it doesn't come to pass.
No, I really don't want to put that kind of energy out there, but I have a nervousness about it. I really do.
In terms of social media and elsewhere, the thinking, I see a lot of
you watch social media, I believe Grenada going to blow up in 2 minutes.
Recklessness, the misinformation, the false information, the fakes out there is just incredible, and they're getting very bold day by day.
Yeah, well, if you give a position that's not theirs, man, they come for you.
Yeah.
They wanna come for you, I should say, because nobody could come. But
well, I mean, I keep saying that the unfortunate thing in our dispensation now, we don't know what news is fake and what is not fake. True. Because everything is questioned and we have no filters, and everybody think that what they see is gospel truth, and that's just one of the disadvantages of having so much information.
In the beginning, Trinidad, they raged, and they had the experience. I mean, they have a target of 800,000 people by the end of July.
500,000
on Saturday afternoon, Trinidad was over 550,000 people vaccinated. Yeah, their first dose. Because, and Trinidad is now, last week alone, Trinidad is 6th in the world for the high rate of vaccination.
And there's a
reason.
For
all that has happened, because they experienced it, So for all that has happened in Trinidad that we have lamented and about, we must say congratulations to Trinidad and their government and so on for all their mobilization of vaccines. And when they started off, it was a little rocky, but they've gotten it right now in terms of their centers and so on.
Brenda, and so we must congratulate. They paid a high price.
The price of death.
And lockdown they were one CARICOM country, English-speaking CARICOM country that was locked down for the longest.
The longest.
They're only gradually opening back up now. So it's not the price has been significant for Trinidad and Tobago. Has been significant.
Severe. So, we just want to implore that we just try to. It's tough. It's really poor. 1/5 of the population of Grenada is vaccinated. It's really, really poor. And then Grenada is listed as a travel hotspot. It's nervous. It's a nervous time. It really is. And then we want to get on as if we're in 2019 at this time of the year. So it just behooves all of us to just step back for a minute and trust that I can't say let good sense prevail, but just let something move you.
We can't say on this program what should be prevailed or not prevailed. Terms of sense.
Good sense. Could be subjective these days, right? Anyway, the people of St. Lucia, they go to the polls today. So good luck. One thing about these isles, the transfer of power is normally very peaceful. And we thank God for that. We go to the ballot box, we we make noise, and then we go, and it's over. So, best wishes to the people in St. Lucia. We'll follow that. Their election was a lot about how the government handled the pandemic as well. And they didn't score high on that front. They didn't score high on that front. So let's see what happened with Mr. King and Mr. Chazanay. Yeah, we'll find out later. Anyway, this morning we have quite a packed program for you. We take a quick break and we'll be back for more perspectives. Please stay with us.
Hey, are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go, There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Get vaxxed. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
I took my best shot for the safety of my community. Get vaxxed, it's your best shot.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back to Perspectives. If you're just joining us for the program, good morning to you. This morning we have lively discussions, a two-part session. We have with us our first guest panelist. He is Barry Collymore, Of course, Barry is the founder and the director of WISH West Indies School of Hospitality. You must have heard about that, seen all about it on social media and so. And WISH Grenada, what they aim to build is the people on the front lines of the service industry by creating paths for education and career advancement. They seek to create a culture of service excellence in Grenada to raise the level of customer service both locally and regionally. It is our pleasure to introduce this morning, no stranger, the director and founder, one of the directors and founders of WISH West Indies School of Hospitality, Grenada, Mr. Barry Collymore. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, Chris and
Morning.
Byron. And of course, good morning to the viewers of Perspectives. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you. So, WISH, West Indies School for Hospitality. First of all, where did that come from? Because the WISH turns out to be just so, kind of embodies what your mission statement is. And of course, that was not by accident, right?
Well, it's a very funny story with the name. Because we had hired a New York firm to come up with the concept and we were working with them and they had many different iterations of what the name could be, and I didn't like any of them, to be honest. We just couldn't figure out what to call it because it was named several things before the actual name, and I was getting quite frustrated because we couldn't find a name because it had to tie in Cornell and all this kind of different things, and the professionals just weren't giving me what I wanted. So I was sitting thinking about it, and I was going through the names and so on, and then somebody who was not a PR or marketing professional, my girlfriend, said, "Barry, why don't you call it West Indies School of Hospitality, WISH?" And I was like, do you realize that we just spent all this money trying to... So I called them and I said, well, I have a name for you. They were like, well, we not finished the research. I said, well, it's done. We have a name. It's WISH. So brand it, package it. That's the name. They did a fantastic job on all of the branding and all that. But it's funny that it's just a lesson that sometimes solutions come from places that you don't expect. So
you have to dip into all the pools. And sometimes it's right in front of you or beside you. So what is the focus of the West Indies School for Hospitality?
Well, West Indies School of Hospitality is addressing one of the problems that we have in tourism in the Caribbean and Grenada in particular. One of the things that we looked at for many years is what are the problems in tourism, and we'd identify them as the high cost of energy, which was the biggest problem, the lack of a focused and sustained marketing campaign. For Grenada in particular, there are Caribbean islands that have done much better in Grenada in their marketing, but we needed a very focused marketing campaign for Grenada, and a sustained one, not just you do something every year, but it needs to be sustained and focused and targeted. And Grenada needed much more name recognition in the source markets. 3 was the lack of hotel inventory, which is a big problem for us. That's why the flights are so expensive. And the fourth one was the lack of service quality standards, management, and the lack of a training facility in the region, and certainly lack of access to training by hospitality workers.
Right.
So that's where it came from.
The relationship with Cornell University and Naguib Sawaris, tell us what it is.
So I thought that we needed not just to have a Grenada school, because what we wanted was that we wanted the persons who were going through this program to not just to be marketable in Grenada, but for them to have a something which made them marketable globally. We also wanted the program to be of a standard where accreditation would not be an issue.
Right.
And we also wanted to have something that was on the cutting edge of technology and the best. That was important. So we didn't set ourselves a local standard. We didn't set ourselves a regional standard. We set ourselves an international standard, and the best international standard, because Cornell is the best hospitality university in the world.
Hands down. Hands down.
So that when I presented it to investors, including Naguib, most people thought, okay, and I said, well, we are looking to get an international brand. Most people didn't think that we could. Naguib said, Barry, if you get Cornell, I'm in. And he said this. He told the story at the launch that he didn't think I would get Cornell, so he didn't think he was on the hook. So actually, I know one of the Cornell alumni very, very well. It was a very influential alumni who happens to be my cousin. And with her contacts and with the business plan that we presented to the deans of Cornell, and it took a year basically to get this done with Cornell. But I was very focused, and we knew exactly what we wanted.
Right.
It changed a few times in terms of how we implemented it, but I'm very happy that we are there. And as Naguib promised, if we got Cornell, he was on board, and he's on board, and I'm very happy. Was very happy to welcome him on board as a partner, as a donor.
Senator Diallo?
Yeah, Barry, congratulations. I think that is something that needs to be done even better than is being done now, as you have identified. I have a question for you though on this service element, because service is not just attitude and deportment and all of that. It's also about back office operations as well, that filters to the front. But one of the things that have bothered me over the years with tourism and hospitality and service is this difference between service and servitude.
Yes.
And recently in Barbados, having experience in Barbados, you see more males as waiters and serving more than females. And it seems as though males have a better aptitude than the females. It's not me, it's just what the sector is showing in the Barbados experience. So my question to you on this is, how do you break this so-called emotional, psychological thing between service and servitude? A lot of us believe that when we are waiters, bellboys, whatever the case is, it's about not the service, but the servitude. And that is, to me, a serious psychological break that we had to have.
Well, that comes from the way that we've traditionally packaged tourism, which is it was a pleasure for the Caucasian race, and we were the persons that enabled them to have this type of enjoyment. That is changing because everybody's going on holiday now, regardless of race. But the stigma of service and servitude still remains. And part of the reason why that remains is very important part of the equation which we are addressing, is that you will find that there are many people in the service industry who are not happy with what they're doing. And one of the reasons why they're not happy with what they're doing is that there's no career path for them. If you are a junior bookkeeper, there's a path to you becoming a senior accountant or chartered accountant. If you are a orderly, there's a path for you to become a nurse or to become a doctor. In general, in the Caribbean, because of the lack of really accredited and serious hospitality programs. Hospitality training has eluded the hospitality worker, so that there's no path for them, so that people, and there's nothing, let me just say this, and I'm very clear on this, there's nothing wrong with staying at the level you are at, but the private sector has to find ways of rewarding people for doing a good job in that part. And sometimes the worst thing that you could do, you have a good waiter and you think that you need to promote them to be a supervisor. When that person is bringing in all the business because people are coming there for them, why don't you pay that waiter more as a waiter instead of trying to make him a manager? He might be a very poor manager, but he's a good waiter.
Yeah.
So that the idea of service versus servitude is that, you know, people are not, there's no intellectual transfer. There's no, people don't feel good about what they're doing. They have management or supervisors that are punitive rather than encouraging. And then there's very senior managers keep changing because we keep importing skills. And then our hotels and our restaurants take they are run by the culture of the general manager or the supervisor at the time. There's no sustained training within many organizations which develops a professional service culture. It is based on, so you have a manager coming from Singapore, that person puts in a Singapore style of management in a Caribbean hotel. You have a manager coming from United Kingdom, they put in a UK. It may or may not be relatable to the Caribbean. Correct. But it's what is happening. Correct. And we need to do that. So I think that with training people, making them feel good about what they are doing through empowerment, and also rewarding them, because service brings commerce. If you are able to serve 10 drinks because you are attentive, you will make more tips and more money than the person who's able to serve one drink because they're not attentive.
Of course, I mean, when you go to restaurants, the experience from having an excellent waiter, you will always want to go back to the restaurant. So you get repeat business one time, just because of the service from the waiter. Not even the kitchen. So sometimes the kitchen may be slow, but that waiter will make you feel so good that you forget how long the food taken to come to the table. So, I mean, really, a lot of it is right at the front line there in that sense. Indeed. The other question I have for you is on the issue of accreditation and what happens in the Grenada context, because I know TAMCC has a program of where they do a certain amount of hospitality training and so on. How do you guys fit into that? I mean, where does a TAMCC student into your program? They will graduate with a diploma from TAMCC. Does your program facilitate them to take them to a degree level or whatever level you want to take them in a particular sense?
Before you answer, can I add something to your question? Because that's where I was going to, and I think we can do it in one. Because I want to recognize TAMCC, but also NULO, and in CVQ qualification, which level 1, 2, 3, and these are regionally recognized and accepted. But what we find, Chris, sir, is that most of our training are catered to the lower paying positions, the routine positions. And what we find in the industry is all the higher management positions are held by expats, non-nationals, you know. Is your institution going to address this? And also linking back to Chris' questions, how do you integrate this really into your institution?
Well, TAMCC and NULO are important foundation educational institutions for Grenada. And it's very good that we have them here, because what it does is that it gives the student a good start and a good base and a good foundation. We believe that we can take it to another level and give the students certification that is recognized around the world, and that there's no question or query about where their certification comes from. It comes from the best hospitality university in the world. I intend to, and we have at the moment a MOU which is being drafted between our company and the Ministry of Education. And what that is addressing is, because government has recognized that this is an important program, that we are going to ensure that we are catering not to the needs in our heads, but the needs of the Grenada workforce. Mm-hmm. So TAMCC and New Law are important parts of that. We do train people at all levels, Byron, not just at the lower level. For instance, there's even a general manager's professional certification course, where a general manager can take the course and come out with a Cornell General Manager's Professional Certificate. Right. They are specific courses. So, for instance, you're a waiter and you want to become a wine expert. There's a wine course where you learn about wines from all over the world and that kind of thing. But the basis, the foundation course that everybody has to take is the Service Excellence course. Mm-hmm. Because that, we believe, is going to be the most impactful course. Yeah. And that course is one that we want to put everyone through, because that is where we think we can make the biggest impact on the workforce. If you upgrade the level of service here, and you have not just a service course, but a service quality management program, which then monitors and the service, which we will implement with Cornell in the different institutions, then you have something which is so valuable, but it costs nothing to give good service. But you have to know how to do it.
Correct. It's a science. Based on your projections and design of the program, and your projection as well, how do you see it impacting what is the recovery, if you will, of the hospitality industry?
I think that there's going to be certainly less people traveling now in general. If you look at for Grenada, if you look at or the profile of the pre-pandemic Grenada traveler, a large percentage, significant percentage, over 70%, I believe, are people over 45, and most of them are actually over 50, and quite a significant proportion of those people are over 60. The older persons, because of COVID, may take a decision not to travel as much as they used to before. Right. And then if you look at the younger end, a big part of Grenada's travel as well was family travel. Mm-hmm. And these kids can't get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So we are fighting in a space where there may be less market. So we need to be more competitive. Mm-hmm. And certainly educational programs of this caliber gives us unique selling points that make us more marketable. Grenada already has something that can't be bought, which is natural friendliness, natural warmth. You can't buy that, you can't implement it. You can't just say, okay, let me put on a warmth friendliness course. No, you can't, right? So then you have very good building blocks to build on. Everybody that comes here talks about three things: the beaches, warmth and friendliness, and the spices. And we want them now to also talk about the friendliness and level of service. And I think that makes you much more.
There's the issue here of cruise tourism, which is a significant employment generating sector of the industry. Is your institution going to cover any aspect of cruise tourism industry? And also, I mean, an important part of the tourism is also the product development. And we can do a lot with ours. Is any contemplated with the institution looking at those factors also?
Well, we're going to address service and education in general, which if somebody goes to work on a cruise ship makes them better equipped and a better equipped worker. And certainly if you go to a cruise ship with a Cornell professional certificate, you will certainly be at the top of the pack.
At a higher level, not lower.
Right?
Yeah.
So we think that the Grenada cruise ship workers having that type of certification can earn a better wage on the cruise ships, can earn more tips, can be promoted easier with those qualifications. As it relates to product development, that's not the mandate of the school, but what we hope is that it inspires an entrepreneurial culture where then people are able to get into more entrepreneurial tourism businesses because they are better equipped and better qualified.
Are you going to be offering scholarships, and who qualifies?
So let me combine that question because I was coming with that the cost of the training and the cost, because the reality is when you see who are our waiters, who are some people who get into butler, is people probably at the low economic round. A lot of them sometimes can't afford to get to classes. I'm talking from a TAMCC experience now. Students can't get to classes, they don't have money to pay bus and so on. How deep in terms of helping students via scholarships, as you say, as well as the cost to the student to get to the highest attainment of the Cornell certificate, how is that going to be managed through WISH?
That's the most that was the most troubling thing in formulating this. And the thing that we took between that and getting Cornell on board, that was the most important part of the business model. It's okay to create a school,
the academic side,
right? But how do you have to remember the customer, and the customer is unable to afford. Cornell is one of the most expensive universities in America, without a doubt. They are an Ivy League school and one of the most expensive university, as expensive as Harvard and Yale and so on, right? So that how do you then market Cornell programs to persons that can't afford it? And the answer is that you make it free, and so that the business model of WISH does not depend on the student or even the small employer to provide any funding for their workers. And this is an important model because Grenada has a finite workforce. You find a man, and this is the problem that part of the problem that we have with the workforce is that people keep going from place to place to place to place, and and you recycle the same people, right? So if you have 10 supervisors or 10 food and beverage managers, and you train all 10, the impact of training those 10 people impacts the entire country, not just one workforce. And then for large organizations, it's a big plus because not only are you able then to hire from your local pool of employment, but you also save on things like work permits and expat housing and that kind of thing is huge.
And I suspect this is where investors like Najib and them will come in to offer that element of reduced cost, almost zero cost.
There's value in that for them.
And he is in it, you got to understand too that he's in it to, somebody like Naguib is in it not just to build a hotel. He wants to actually make a difference in Green. He wants to see that there's a connection between his success in Grenada and the success of the entire Grenada population. So that no individual student that enrolls in WISH will have to pay anything. It's all scholarships, 100% scholarships. Oh. There's no fees. Now there's a danger in that. In that and I mean, see it in Barbados with free education, where men go to UE and spend 12 years doing a bachelor's because it's free, right? So there will have to be some accountability, and that is going to have to be built in where there is some. But
there has to be an end.
Yes.
Some criteria.
Yes, some criteria. But so this is why, as in the initial step, one of the first things that we are doing is we are going to employers.
Right.
And hoping that employers will be the biggest cheerleaders and organizers with us to help get their own workforce educated. And also,
but you just cut out their training department.
Well, no, I don't.
Significant subsidy to their training.
But the reality is that in a small island like Grenada, most companies do not have a training department.
Correct.
And most companies do not spend any time on training.
Yeah.
So, but no, we haven't. Even if you have a training department, we've just given you an addition.
Right. Complemented.
Yeah. So we complemented. That's right.
That's good.
That's
good.
right. For sure.
That's good.
So
that's really good.
So yeah, so that answers that question. It's not, there's no cost, but there's some accountability from the employers. You don't want people enrolling and then dropping out, you know? You don't want that.
Yeah. That's a great base to start, I think. You know, to me, that's a natural pool right there.
Yeah.
Folks in the restaurants, the hotels, they would want their staff trained and identify them, and they sign them and send them along. So that's a really good thing. Sounds really exciting. And I really like the fact, because I think that's one of the things over the years that is a problem for us. The fact that we are huge, tourism industry and so on and so forth, and we see there's a skills gap issue, and that our people just get to a certain level and then they don't, you know. So sound like with Wish, we'd be churning out some of the best to go the world over. Just so folks from Trinidad, Dominica, Barbados, St. Lucia, they can come to Wish as well. We have qualified.
We have over 5,000 scholarships per year. The first thing is to do a mass Grenada enrollment, and not just although our focus is the hospitality sector, the courses are really catered for anybody who's in the service sector in general.
Right.
So our aim first is to do a massive Grenada enrollment, but we will offer seats firstly to the OECS and then the wider Caribbean, and hopefully
is this mainly online training taking place. Any bricks and mortar, as we call it, any physical
face to face.
Yeah. So most of it is online.
Yeah.
But of course, you can't do this entirely online. So it will be a blend of online and practical. And practical. And the way it is done is
a 6-star butler.
Yeah,
can't do all of that online.
Yeah, exactly.
Butler services are a serious high-end thing of this.
And let me just say this as well, that I don't want people to feel intimidated that you have to have 6 CXCs or whatever to enroll. You don't have to have. All you have to do is to have a good attitude.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. The way that the courses are designed, and the way that we are, and this is why I'm so happy with Cornell as a partner. Learning has evolved so much that learning is no longer picking up a book and just reading 2 chapters and then writing back. There's this blended learning that Cornell brings, which is very pictorial and very interactive and that kind of thing that anybody can do, regardless of your educational level. So I don't want people to feel intimidated because it's Cornell. It's Cornell, but Cornell is such a good institution because they realize that their success is not only in terms of how many scholarly professors and journals, but their impact on learning. And they have devised in an incredibly adaptive and a responsive learning environment and techniques that anybody can enroll, regardless of your educational level. The only people that will not succeed is people who are not prepared to work hard and who are not committed to what they're doing.
And finally, does the school offer any help in co-oping placements? Like at the end of your training, do you offer any help in co-oping a placement at a hotel, a restaurant? Do you do any of that?
We will, firstly, remember, we're working with employers, right? Primarily. So a lot of the people who we are training will already be employed. Yeah. However, the answer to your question is yes, because there has to be a component of this where we are able to assess,
I want to go back where I was.
Assess, exactly. We are able to assess, and don't forget, there are more and more hotel rooms and restaurants and so on opening. We're able to assess persons and give recommendations and so on to employers. But a big part of this, I hope as well, is that we are able to not just motivate people to become better employees, but motivate them to be entrepreneurs and open their own business.
Just one point I want to make before we
Good
stuff. I want us to again be cognizant of what's been happening. That the National Training Agency and the NULO and the TAMCC, they have, and even the SAP program, involved in training for the sector. Of course, it starts, particularly the new entrants, where you go into the community, you interface with community persons and get them excited about the possibility of employment in that sector. It's very important for this initiative to take into account what's been happening and how, because in all of those cases, particularly new entrants, they have opportunity for placements in the CVQ qualification program. And so they've made a lot of inroads working that way. So I think it's important for that new institution. It's taking it to another level, and that's great. But to factor that, to look at training for the sector in a holistic way as you go forward.
I think that's very good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Good. I want to wish well.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yes.
So I think you're doing a great thing there, Barry.
Thank you.
Anything that could offer hope to our youngsters.
Thank you.
In terms of training. And I like the thing about the career part. I think that's an excellent thing. And of course, the cost. Free scholarships, 5,000 scholarships. That is significant. And I trust that more investors like Nagib and others come along to keep that going. And I think that's a wonderful initiative.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure with the impact of WISH, we'll be churning out new lows and whatever all over Grenada. Because then they know with their training, some of the people who are trained by WISH probably want to become trainers themselves and go back to their communities. And so I see that as only complementing what we already have and really structuring it and lifting it higher. And then all this is happening while you're chairman of the GTA. So that would be part of your legacy as well, and how that dovetails into everything we do. Thank you so much, Barry. Nice seeing you again.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be talking soon on another matter since you wear very many hats. All right. So anything you want to say to us before you leave?
I just want to thank you for inviting me, and I enjoyed the discussion this morning. I think that we've got to try to get things going here back as quickly as possible. And this is one of the ways in which you recover, is that you have a better army of workers going out there. I am, like you, concerned about the vaccination rates, because this is one of the things that can threaten the workforce. And unlike other countries, I was telling the story of a friend of mine with a big project in Mexico whose project was going too slowly, and I was in the car with him. He called the contractor and he said to him, "I'd like another 1,000 workers, please, on this site so we could finish." There's no other 1,000 workers in Grenada if our workforce gets sick.
Correct.
There are a finite number of, there's no other region to call people out from.
Correct.
There's no other backup set of police officers or fire officers or dock workers we have a set number, and if you have massive infection within the workforce, this is not only just threatening your health, it's threatening your security.
Just
if the
to
police
interject,
get
we
sick,
don't have a parallel healthcare system either.
that's
No.
the point. That's the point. So I'm very concerned, like you. And when you opened with that thing, I was like, wow, how can I go talk about Wish now? Because no, but it's so serious, you know.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is. It is. But we have to keep building, and we have to keep wading through this pandemic. And the fact that we have been able to, during this time, obviously you put a lot of thought and work into to still come up with things like this. It's really, 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 really inspiring, to say the least. So again, congratulations. We wish well.
Thank you.
And we wish you continued success and good health, of course. And thank you so much. All right.
Yeah.
Our special guest panelist this morning was Mr. Barry Collymore, founder and director of Wish West Indies School of Hospitality. We take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go, there are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from work. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back, and we're getting ready to wrap the program for this Monday the 26th of July 2021. Gentlemen, great conversation there with Barry Collymore of West Indies School of Hospitality.
I agree. I think the key here is the modality, meaning that it is of no cost in terms of financial cost to the potential student. So great thing. But Brenda, I just want to say that last Thursday in Mount Morris, we reopened the community health center.
Yes, I saw that.
And
yes.
and tomorrow we have our first vaccination day. From 9 to 12.
Yeah,
so I just want to say that out. Come out if you're in a village and the surrounding village and you're not vaccinated. Come get your vaccination. It is important. It's really critical. It's about lives.
Did you have any kind of feel for how your community is doing though in terms of vaccinations?
Yes, because we've done house to house. We've visited. I don't have it in terms of percentage, but quite a number of persons have went out to get their vaccination. Some are waiting on the second dose, and we hope that with the campaign, with the one-on-one, that persons will understand. Because what we're really struggling about, Brenda, is a misinformation. It's and it's very aggressive and assertive. It's and it coming forward as truth. Facts. And so this is what the world is up against. But I think it's important that we localize it, that we meet people on a one-on-one basis, dialogue, conversations, because a lot of people have genuine concerns and fear, particularly as a result of the bulk of misinformation. So being able to talk. Also, for example, I know in the Ministry of Finance, they had doctors were on in a Zoom meeting with all the workers, talking about, and they were able to field questions. And so I think we need to move into a phase of dialogue, making people feel more dialogue, more dialogue.
Yeah. Because what you're addressing,
more dialogue.
I get your cynicism. I get your cynicism. There are days that I am there. I get your cynicism. But the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, we're still faced with this mountain to climb. And as such, we have to really address and allay fears and so on. It's become very, 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 very polarizing in many, many respects. And what I like, and maybe we should, in terms of the national effort, is to probably take a page from your book in Mount Morris. And more communities probably need to really, because if a respected face or a face I like or a face I'm knowledgeable in my community comes to my door, I am more open to listen. I am more open to vent. Lord, Mr. Campbell, I don't really want this vaccine because you know why? And I'll tell you why. And then you will tell me. And that is how we operate as a people. So strong communities build strong nations. So maybe in terms of the national broad generic messaging, we probably need to go back and just try to address it from that level. So what you're doing in Mount Morris, kudos to you. Really, kudos to you. Very well done. And I trust that other communities in Grenada, and there can be a national effort that communities are engaged that way, and that people become more, because it is just 1/5 of our population in this very dicey time. No, we are not in a good place.
Well, I just want to wrap up and say that I think the WISH program is an excellent initiative.
Excellent. Addresses
the aspect, as Byron talked about scholarships and so on, I think is also a really good thing to help really people in an economic situation to know that they could be educated to a level. But I want to throw this caveat. Barry didn't say it, but I more than likely think that if you have to get into this program and get a scholarship, one of the caveats is going to be you need to be vaccinated, because of the particular industry you're heading into, and the possibility of being placed after you have worked and have done well in the program academically and otherwise. You need to, as a young person who is coming and thinking about going there and asking for a scholarship, you need to know your vaccination status.
What's your status?
Is going to be looked at. So I say this to say that excellent program, well thought out, well constructed, attracting one of the best universities in the world in this area, giving a lot of our young people a lot of hope, especially our men. Because you see
not
this
only
thing,
young people in the industry in general. There are people, you meet people that tell you they've worked in hospitality for 25 years, and then, they see other people, they're good, but they're not that, and Sir Royston, of blessed memory, this is something, he would have been excited to see this. This is something he talked about all the time, that we got to a certain level and no more, and we really needed to fill the skills gap with the managers and the, the top level.
Barry have said, this is about crystallizing people people in a career path, and you need to get it. And I think that's what this program brings. So I just want to say, and as you said, if we are unvaxxed and something was to hit us, we have a finite workforce.
Can't go nowhere.
I don't think he could have said it. We could have said it any better.
I was telling you guys on camera when chikungunya was raging. There was a week at GBN when I was at GBN. About 17 of us were out sick with chikungunya. So that's just kind of
effect on the private sector.
Chikungunya was debilitating. It was debilitating. So I always kind of draw my thing on how chikungunya impacted, since we have not had that yet with COVID, and God, I hope we don't, but we really need to start thinking
all the
about
COVID things. We had dengue around with us,
But then, talking about the hospitality industry, just like to congratulate everyone in the hospitality who have gone out and gotten vaxxed, and really because really and truly it was a heavy percentage of our workload who were at home. Now they're back out. Hotels are doing very well, even down to entertainment. The people who are vaccinated, they are getting all the jobs, and all of that. No, I wasn't talking about a cow pen. I was talking about.
That's a form of entertainment.
I wasn't talking about the cow pen. I see a picture of the cow pen there. I ain't ready to talk about the cow pen. The cow pen kind of scare me. I understand people needed to exhale, but the cow pen kind of scare me. All right. So let's just be careful, everybody. We're heading into the Emancipation holiday. That's next Monday. So we will not be here. Have a great week. July is ending. Let's continue to give thanks for all the small mercies and everything else. And let us just not keep opposing to our death. Let us try to be rational. And not just death in terms of mortality, but in terms of everything in our nation, our friendships, our jobs, our relationships, and so on. Let us just all try to keep clear heads in this beautiful space called Grenada. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, man. Have a great week.
Yes. And I'm going to leave you again with the words of Tabitha Brown, man. If you can't have a good day, don't go out messing up anybody's day. Until we see again, I'm Brenda Batiste. Bye-bye.